Hello and welcome, fellow Wasteland survivors. I'm Dean. Thanks for stopping in, hanging out with me. We are at Echo Lake Lumber Mill in Far Harbor. This is the start of our next really cool build. We're going to build the Adam Katz bowling alley, and I think it'll look super sweet here. Now, sorry, and I need to apologize in advance. Most of these clips over the next few videos will be taken during the night. It is so much easier to see at night than it is during the day. Clear day or clear weather shells just are not an option here. They only last a few seconds, and then right after is a rad storm with usually a rainstorm right behind that. So we're just going to deal with the weather as it comes along, and I'll try my best to really show the what we're doing the best that I can under these circumstances. Now, today's video will be about repairing this building first. I think we need to get this repaired. This will be the entrance to the bowling alley, and we've got a lot of work here. There are ceilings missing, floors, walls. This building, it just literally is almost entirely destroyed. Plus, we don't have roofs that go on the same angle as the roofs that this building has. Also, even though it's a 3-story building, it's not fully, truly 3 stories. They're like every half a story. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Okay, I think the first thing that we need to do is work on the outside wall. What I've got here is a barn door with a full barn wall on the side, 2 half a barn walls on top with another full barn wall on top of that. Now, because we can't build our whole structure and then place it over top of the building like we can some of the buildings in the vanilla part of the game, like in Sanctuary, we're going to have to do this in sections. So I've already built everything I think we need for the first part of the coverage, the wall and the roof. But we can't take the ceiling or the roof part in with us yet, only the wall. So now I'll align the barn door up with the door of the pre-existing building, and then try to get quite a bit of this to show on the outside. It's the closest wall that we have to match up with the pre-existing wall. Now, I was hoping this half a barn wall with the window in it would match up with the window of the building, but it didn't. And since there isn't any damage there, we're just going to take them out. Then it'll just look like that. Alright, now the next thing that we can do is go ahead and grab our ceiling and get it in up on top, our roof and part of the wall. Now, like I said, I've already constructed most of it, but I had to take a couple of pieces out so that we could group select the wall that it was connected to. In this way, I'm able to make sure that we're, at the right heights, and we'll hit all of the sections or angles in the building. Now we'll add in a floor at the bottom of these half a barn walls with the windows in it, and then I'll want to go ahead and place a marker out, so that way, in case I have to let this return back to this area, then I have a marker of the floor where I can put it back in to put our post back in. Now we can go ahead and grab it, bring it on up, and align it up in here. Now, this did take quite a bit of time, and I've edited out the amount of time it took for me to actually get this lined up so that we can see it quicker without all the adjusting. And yeah, that really looks good. It's fitting in there nice and tight, and I think, that part and our one wall is done. Now, let's repair this floor that's on this upper part. If we can get a lot of this up here done, then we can work our way to the ground. Normally we want to build from the ground up, but in this case I think we're going to want to start at the ceiling and work our way down. I think we might not be able to match up good enough with the ceiling if we started at the bottom. Okay, now I'm using a couple of the barn concrete floors so we can sink pillars into it. I've created the floor that I would like to put into that hole, and then we're using a couple of these conduit pipings, as I guess what I call them, to group select that. Now I've already got another concrete barn floor in over by the build, which will allow me to adjust this floor. And this really didn't take hardly any time to do. And it actually inserted into the pre-existing floor underneath all this junk I didn't scrap, and it really looks good. I think I'm happy with that. Okay, this next part I didn't make any clips of because I didn't know how this was going to work out. But it worked out. So let me explain what I did real quick. We took a couple of barn walls and placed them along the edge of that ceiling or roof we just jumped off of. Once I built it up so high, I was able to put some angled roofs on the top of that, and then they matched up with that ceiling that we can see that we just put in perfectly. But there was a bit of a gap between them. So all I needed to do was just grab 4 more ceilings, use this metal post, group select them, bring them over, and it filled that gap up nicely. And everything's all blended together, and it doesn't look, it looks great. I'm very happy with that. Now what we need to do is figure out a way to close these ends off. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just showing one way that I was experimenting with different ways to close these ends off to make them look good. And this actually worked out. I just needed to put one more piece in that left-hand corner. Okay, the next thing that we're going to want to work on is the floor to our second story. Now, there's a reason why I'm jumping around like this, and that is because we need some of these to go in first, so that way it makes it easier to align other things that we're going to be putting in later on. I couldn't get this floor to actually insert into the other floor. It just wouldn't turn green. It is sticking up above 1 floor thickness. I don't really like it. I'm going to leave it for now, but this definitely did change. Basically, I just took these right-hand floors out and laid carpets across there. And then that way it was the same height as the floor. Alright, now we get to see a good look at why we put the floor in first. We actually can't put this corner in until we got our floor in so we could line it up on the corner. As you can see, the pre-existing wall is all blown out right there. And there's literally no place to line that up. And so it would all just be guessing. Okay, now that we've got that one wall piece in, let's get our frontal wall piece in. And there is one extra wall here that I would have liked to have added in with that. But this is one of the places that you cannot put an object. And you can see it right in the middle of that wall. It's like a little floor or a floor joist or something sticking out. And nothing, and see that little square? Nothing that you do or can do will make anything go in there. So I'm just going to adjust this piece in there the best I can to maximize up filling that hole the best that we can. And this just took a little bit of time to get it just right. I think we'll keep it on the right side of the post. It's a little less of a gap on the bottom. Why do I call it a post? It's not a post. It's like a rafter, that little square piece sticking out. And yeah, I think that's covering it up good enough. Alright, now that we've got most of our outside walls repaired, I think it's time to do some of the inside walls. And we'll just continue to use these barn walls doing it. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can reverse these walls to make them angle with their texture on the inside instead of poking outside. But this is just one way I do it, and it's real quick, and you can see it was real fast to put that angle in with those walls facing to us instead of outward. Now I'm just going to use a full-sized ladder, bring it over, and put it in. And yeah, I got a piece right here, but it's a little longer. We'll just take it out. Since we can't see it, there's no sense of it being in there. We're going to skin some more of these walls individually, and we'll just put a piece in there in a few minutes. But yeah, that looks really good there. Alright, now since we're inside and we don't really have a lot of build, we can actually do our group selecting inside. The reason we didn't do our main wall in here is because it was bigger than the room in here, and there's just no room to snap all the walls on. And yeah, our door looks excellent. It would be no problem to snap any door on there that we would like. Now I'll just use a few more of these wall pieces and fill up some of the gaps. Now when you're doing this, what you really want to check for is that none of the wall you just put in is sticking out, in front or behind of other walls. And then we'll just go ahead and use another wall to fill this gap up that we couldn't earlier. I toyed with putting a couple of the half wall pieces in there, but they do have some damage to them, and since it is looking pretty nice in here, we'll just put a full wall in. And then we'll use the pre-existing brick to start another look. Okay, let's get upstairs and work on the next story. We've got a lot going on here. First of all, we've got this big beam running from one wall clear to the other. What that was actually used for or therefore, I have no idea. But, it is kind of a pain in the butt. But we'll deal with that. Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is fix our floor before we go any farther. So what we're going to do is use our seamless carpet technique that we saw when we were building the Enterprise. And I think I'll just use these mats to, cover that damage on the floor up on top. And that'll keep us looking really sharp and really nice up here. And then it's just as simple as grabbing the first one and bringing it over. Yeah, that looks really good. Now keep in mind, if this isn't working for you, ladies or gentlemen, don't forget to move your carpets around a little bit or even spin them around a little bit. You'll find the right spot and they'll line up nicely. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to work on is that angled piece up to the third story. Now I actually did this a couple of different ways. Every way worked with the exception that when I placed the outside wall in, I could never get any object I was using to group select to register. So in other words, right here where we're standing, when I would build this side of the wall and then bring it in to group select it to bring it in, I just couldn't get any object to register on the floor. It just kept passing through it. So we built the whole thing outside and brought it in one piece, and I'm so much more happier with that. It looks really good. It's filling up the entire area all the way across, even right up to our brick wall. Now let's go ahead and skin some of the walls on the inside. Now I'm using the concrete pillar to do this because for some reason the mats and the rugs will once in a while, well, I should say most often, not let your ladders turn green. And so therefore the concrete pillar makes it easier. Oh, look how nice and tight we got that. Yes, that looks excellent. Now we just got a little damage there on the end, and we'll just use a little one of these half walls, or not really half, but we'll put it in there and it'll fill up that area right up to the concrete wall, or the brick wall there. Oh, that looks so good. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to want to do is put a ceiling in. And since we're having problems with the carpet, also I want the ceiling to be up a specific height. I've just randomly laid some floors in to get this metal post the correct height that I'd like to get it. And then I'll just take a second here and adjust it and put it in. Alright, now we'll just take a second and look it over, make sure it's in there alright. We've got a little bit sticking out on this end. I don't think that's going to hurt us any. Looks pretty good. I just want to make sure it's up against the top of those walls that we put in. I would have liked it to have been a little lower than where it's at, but I don't want to cover these arch looking areas here on the sides where it's destroyed. I'm going to use those as entrances and exits. Now there are a few options that we can do to close the top of this gap off. But here what I'm showing is just a couple of things I'm randomly looking at to see what might fill that up. And we can actually get a big light box, well, a lot of things to set up there. So I'll think about it. Maybe we'll put a string of light boxes across up there. That would look pretty cool. Alright, now that we've got that wall skinned, let's do our side wall. I've got a half wall at the bottom with 2 full walls at the top. What this ought to do is fit the angles of this middle story that we're working on. If you remember right earlier, I said that each one of these stories are about a half a story before the next one starts. So as you can see, with that half of wall at the bottom, it fits the top story just perfect when going to the left. Alright, now we couldn't get it all the way over to the wall because we're not covering, or the corner I should say, because we're not covering that other damage up. So I did have to make the same thing over again, a half a wall and a full wall, and we'll just line it up to the corner there and try to create that as an edge or a wall angle. And boy, that really looks so good. Oh, look how much cleaner all of this is in here. We do still have a few more damaged areas to repair, but we'll get to those a little later. Let's take a look at the other end of this building. Now I did quite a few things here, and I still may change. What I did was we put 2 vanilla walls up with a floor. Group selected them, brought them in. Now the floor would insert up into the ceiling, but that made our floors quite high off, or our walls quite high off the floor. Outside we just used 2 barn walls and a roof. Group selected it, brought them in, and they fit right in there with it. Okay, right above the area we just looked at is another damaged area with a wall and a roof. So this is the little makeup piece that I think that we can get in there. I did have to modify this a couple of times, and that's what we saw was I was taking one of the pieces out to see if it'll fit now. And now that that piece is out, it will fit in there, and I'll just take a second and line it up. Now this is not going to fit all the way into the walls, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, the wall with the windows in it is hitting the ceiling on the other side. Second of all, you're trying to penetrate 2 walls. So the best you're going to do here is just to be able to get it flush up against the pre-existing wall that's already there. And yeah, so far I think that's looking really good. Now, because it was so difficult to build on this end of the build, I did so many different ways. And this is the way that it finally turned out. And that's why I don't have no clips on what I did, because like I said, it was 100 different ways. But we've actually extended the wall out a little bit, which is housing or covering over our workstation. There is a little bit of a gap between the ground and the one wall, but it would take nothing to fill that area up. Also, for this hole that's in the side of the wall, instead of fixing it, maybe we'll use these little metal curved walls there. Now inside, the reason I used the concrete barn floors is because of this area. That metal box that's right there is so much of a pain in the butt. You can't get anything to go in there because of that. It collides with it and just won't allow it in. Now I do have it 1 floor thickness above the wall that's in that kitchen. The reason is because if I had it down 1 floor lower where that was flush, we would never be able to get up or down these stairs. Your head would just continuously hit that floor. There are a few gaps on this end that I just can't get filled up, but later on we'll mess with it and maybe we'll get something in there. But overall, this is pretty much how it looks right now. This is our one end where we just needed that one little angle piece. Wow, that just looks so good. It's so filled in nicely. Now the side that we're getting ready to look at is not quite as tight, but it's still pretty decent too. We got a little bit of a gap here on the bottom and a little bit of a gap over here on the right hand side. But keep this in mind, we are in the beginning part of this build, and I'm sure as time goes by, that part of the build will change. Now, the 2 times I've built at Echo Lake, I've used mods. I was a little bit worried that we might not get some of this done because of not using mods, but oh my god, it's looking so good in here. Yeah, I foresee 0 problems continuing our Adam Cat bowling alley here at Echo Lake Lumber Mill. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for part 1 of our build. I hope I see you for part 2, which is coming out shortly. And, you know, just like always, ladies and gentlemen, please, until next time, stay safe and peace.